Our special guest today is Dr. Michael Lewis, an expert on nutritional interventions for brain health, particularly the prevention and rehabilitation of brain injury. In 2012, upon retiring as a colonel after 31 years in the U.S. Army, he founded the nonprofit Brain Health Education and Research Institute. He is a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and Tulane University School of Medicine. Dr. Lewis is a board-certified and fellow of the American College of Preventative Medicine and American College of Nutrition. He completed postgraduate training at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, Johns Hopkins University, and Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. He is in private practice in the Potomac, Maryland, and is a consultant to the United States Army and Navy, as well as several nutrition companies around the world. He is the author of the Amazon best-selling book, When Brains Collide, What Every Athlete and Parent Should Know About the Prevention and Treatment of Concussions and Head Injuries. And Dr. Lewis, we are so thrilled that you are joining us today.
Couldn't we have gotten somebody more impressive? Dr. Lewis, good morning.
Morning. How's everybody doing?
Good. Well, you are the expert on the brain and how to help it, stay healthy and well. And today, I think, with so many various brain traumas that we're seeing with the various sports, soccer, football, and hockey, as well as the concern of many individuals in the aging process of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Also military.
Yes, head traumas. What can you enlighten us on?
Well, I would highly recommend that you keep your helmet on when you're on the football field, and if somebody takes it off of you, run away and don't sit there and let them swing it at you.
Yeah, I saw that. That was really scary.
That would be my number one recommendation for sure. Especially when he's, 100 pounds heavier and 8 inches taller. It's probably not the best idea.
Yes.
Sports can be dangerous, some more than others, but I'm a huge fan of football and team sports. I grew up playing them. My son was the running back for the high school football team, and now he's in college playing rugby. Why would I do that? I mean, given what I know and what I do, well, because there's so many great benefits of kids that are youth playing sports that they far outweigh the risks. But what I look at is how do we put our risks more in our favor? And, rule changes are really important, and we've been going through that and trying to decrease the amount of hitting that occurs, say, in practice and stuff like that. Safer helmets, great. In soccer, that doesn't really apply because soccer's a collision sport as well. So I came with a different approach. How do we increase the resilience of the brain from the inside out? How do we make the brain able to function better and potentially even be more resilient to withstand injury in the first place? And it's really about inflammation, and how you deal with inflammation is with what you eat. And that was the approach that I've taken.
It's so hard dealing with the brain in particular. There's a lot of nutrients and things. We talk about the blood-brain barrier, and it's sometimes hard to get things into the brain.
Well, it is. And, you got to remember the brain's made of fat, right? And so we've always kind of downplayed the importance of fat. In fact, we've demonized fat over the last 50, 60, 70 years, right? Don't eat fat. Fat is bad. And it's been the absolute wrong advice. There are good fats and there are bad fats. And even that comes with some questions. But, about 30% of the weight of the brain is what we call omega-3 type of fats. And the best source of omega-3 type of fats is from seafood. I mean, from other sources, but seafood is principally the best place. And, as a culture, we don't eat a lot of seafood. And even worse, we eat lots of junk food and a lot of processed food. And the principal fat in those isn't cholesterol. That's the worry. The principal fat that we have to worry about there is omega-6 type of fats. And it's in everything. So, but it also, we need to have it in our brain. But the problem is omega-6 type of fats help promote inflammation, and omega-3 type of fats help resolve inflammation. So, as you can imagine, you need a balance. And we've become so out of balance because of the food supply, because of our culture, because of how we eat, and the lack of seafood. We've lost that balance instead of, the inflammation resolving balance. We're now 20, even 30 to 1 out of balance of these omega-6s to our omega-3. So it's like smoking at a gas station. It's just an accident waiting to happen.
And so many people are avoiding fish today because of, pollution and contamination from the oceans and from the waters. That how do they get, pure oil into the system?
Well, the 2 points that you can make out of that. One is that the benefits, just like I say, the benefits of playing sports far outweigh the risks of playing sports. The benefits of eating seafood are actually far greater good for your brain than the risks of, say, mercury and things like that. So I think that we've overblown that risk. There's actually people have quantified it, showing that the risk of eating too much fish and a little bit and has some mercury, you might lose a half an IQ point. But what you're missing by not eating fish is somewhere around 7 or 8 IQ points. So we talk about the risk, we never talk about the benefits of it. The second point would be that, how do we fill that gap? Well, supplements, fish oil supplements or omega-3 supplements, and get them derived from algae so that they're vegetarian and so on. So supplements, there's studies that show that they look at 300-400 different brands of supplements, and not a single one of them had any measurable amount of mercury or PCBs or heavy metals.
And so that's a good way to, get started. Is there a particular dosage that you recommend of people taking omega-3s?
Well, I look at the FDA tells us what they call generally recognized as safe, GRAS, or GRAS levels. They say 3,000 milligrams of the long-chain omega-3s, EPA and DHA, 3,000 milligrams of combined amount of EPA and DHA per day is what they say is generally recognized as safe. So that's what I go with. And so I as a preventive measure, I say take 3,000 a day. If you're going to be playing collision sports, if you're going to be deployed to Afghanistan, if you're at any risk of concussions through your daily life, you should be taking 3,000 milligrams a day. And if you have an injury that occurs, we probably know that, most Americans are really deficient in omega-3. So I actually kind of do a loading dose. I call it the omega protocol. I take that 3,000 and I triple it up. I have my patients take it breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 9,000 a day for a week. In some cases, if the injuries occurred months or years or even decades ago, I have them do it for a month or two.
Wow. Now, I want to switch gears just a little bit because you're also an expert in understanding how hemp-derived CBD oil is beneficial for brain function and particularly trauma.
Yes, absolutely. So, I started this idea of working with omega-3s about a dozen years ago when I was active duty in the Army, and developed programs looking at it for the military. And after I retired, I got to know people in the industry much better, and people started talking about this CBD stuff, this cannabidiol derived from hemp. And so I eventually looked at it, and it turns out that Nobel laureate scientists at the NIH and two other NIH scientists had published a patent, or had been awarded a patent by the U.S. government, looking at cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. And this was around 2003 that they were awarded this patent. And it goes on to say, and again, this is by a Nobel laureate in medicine, goes on to say that CBD is a powerful, non-psychoactive antioxidant and neuroprotectant with use in stroke, trauma, TBI, and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease.
Dr. Lewis, I got to jump in here real quick because we got to take a quick break, and when we get back, I want you to expand on that because this is a concern to just about every generation that's out there right now. The CBD oil works a little bit differently than other anti-inflammatories.
It does, and because we keep talking about CBD like it's this new thing. But it's interesting, it derived from cannabis and principally from hemp is what we're talking about. Because, when you're talking Plus CBD Oil and other brands that you can get at your grocery store, it's not the other cannabis, it's derived from hemp. Well, hemp and cannabis have been used for thousands of years in every major society, every major culture in the history of mankind. And 100 years ago, every major pharmaceutical had cannabis extracts available. And it was actually one of the best-selling approaches to the pharmaceutical industry 100 years ago. So we talk it like it's this new thing because it was prohibited for 70 years or so, and so now it's making this big comeback, and for good reason, because it is a very powerful anti-inflammatory, but it works very different than other ways.
Everybody, again, and talk about this being new, and we still today have people who don't make a distinction between hemp and pot, and they're worried. They come in, and if we mention, possibly using CBD, they're like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. Like it's, gonna
this evil thing.
So what's the
difference?
Well,
the government's done a great job of brainwashing us on that one, haven't they?
And now, again, today there's so many people that are concerned about the longevity of their brain. You were talking about patients who have had strokes and patients, wanting to prevent Alzheimer's, dementia. Is CBD something that's going to be a part of that future?
In my opinion, better dosing, higher dosing of omega-3s and the combination with CBD, I think, is our best hope for longevity, keeping our brain health as long as we can, and including putting off things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And here's how I tie it to brain health, brain injury, concussions, for example, because a lot of people have head injuries, maybe subtle, things like that. They just are part of life. You go on a roller coaster ride, you're getting thrown around. You don't think of a roller coaster ride as a concussion, but that whiplash that you have on a roller coaster can cause some damage. Car accidents, playing on the playground when you're a kid, sometimes you're doing stupid things as a teenager. Lots of ways we can get a head injury, and we don't, you recover most of the time very quickly, especially the younger you are, and you don't think about it. But what happened between Muhammad Ali taking punches as a young man and later in life dying of Parkinson's? That's inflammation. And that's exactly what omega-3s and even more powerfully CBD can help bring under control and even potentially reverse some of the damage that's done by inflammation.
And not to mention, you got benefits to the rest of the body as well with both of these products, right?
Absolutely. And so the thing that's fascinating to me is we're now figuring out that they actually work through some similar pathways. And so while we know a lot more about omega-3s, we now know that they actually help support and stimulate what you have to understand, we have these receptors throughout our body are associated with our immune system and associated very closely with our brain. The most abundant receptor system in our body has been identified and named our cannabinoid system, so our endogenous cannabinoid system. And it's fascinating to me that omega-3s help support that, but CBD is an absolute direct conduit into our endocannabinoid system, and it's about the tone, it's about the balance. And so when your endocannabinoid system is working great, you have good digestion, a healthy immune system, no headaches, you feel good, you should not be overeating. So it's all about this endocannabinoid tone, but most of us are not in very good tone, let alone very good shape. And so, we have anxiety and overeating and obesity and irritable bowel and all these things that are really a reflection of our endocannabinoid system just not being balanced. And so CBD helps bring that back into balance.
Is there a specific dosage that you recommend for people to take? In particular, we use at our practice, and I believe you as well, the Plus CBD Oil from CV Sciences.
Well, because we're talking about almost two things, and it may sound a little bit separate, we're talking about supporting our immune system, and we're talking about supporting our brain health. I actually use two different products from Plus CBD Oil. I look at their red label, their raw product, and I also like their more concentrated product, their gold label, or their gold concentrate. For those two specific reasons, the raw red label product helps support our immune system, and the gold label is unbelievably the best thing I've ever had to use with patients to help support the brain health, in particular anxiety, help calm that voice down in the back of your head. So one of the best things I like about the Plus CBD Oil line of products is they come in soft gels, really easy to take, smaller than a pea. And so I start people with, I'd say, take the red twice a day, one soft gel in the morning, one soft gel at night, and do that consistently. With the gold, I say that we can play with it a little bit more. Let's start with one soft gel in the morning and one at bedtime because it helps with sleep. But if it doesn't seem to fit right or you need more, then we can go with either more frequent or higher doses, or even back off a little bit with that. So the problem is everybody's dose is different, and you have to kind of adjust on an individual basis.
Is there a particular reason why you chose the Plus CBD from CV Sciences as part of your regime?
Well, a couple of reasons. One was personality. A number of key players from the fish oil industry went over to the CBD industry, and they went to CV Sciences. And knowing them, and I followed them. Basically, they kept saying, "You got to look at this," and I did. And as I looked into the company, I was incredibly impressed with the quality of control that they have, literally from the seed all the way to the shelf. They only use two cultivars, two types of hemp. That's all they ever use. They have never varied from that. So they get the consistency in the plant. We call it CBD oil, but it's hemp oil that happens to have CBD in it. There's bunches of other things. There's fatty acids, there's terpenes, there's other cannabinoids, there's vitamins and minerals. So different strains or different cultivars give you different amounts of those things. And so the fact that they've only ever used two specific strains that are known to be higher in CBD and have this broad spectrum, that's been really important to me. And they had the quality control behind it. And the thing that really sealed it for me was when they came out with soft gels that just made patient compliance so much better than drops and tinctures, and how many sprays, or how many drops do I put it under my tongue, or do I swallow it? Do I hold it? swallow a soft gel.
I agree 100%. Dr. Lewis, unfortunately, we've run out of time. We could talk to you for another whole hour, but we want to thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to talk to you again.
Oh, let's talk a whole nother hour next time.
Okay, that sounds fantastic.